So today what we're going to do is simply walk through the interface, give you a layout, a lay of the land, if you will. And then what we'll do is go through a couple of different use cases in regards to how to interact or how to register interactions, which would be in-user interactions with the service or help desk personnel within your organization. Then look at ways in which those can be escalated in regards to moving it from just a simple service desk interaction to an incident, and then from there also and look within the problem management interface. So what I'm going to do quickly is just pivot over into the first of the portals that we'll look at. What we're looking at right now is the Service Anywhere self-service portal. This comes with the Service Anywhere product. It allows for your end user base to actually log requests within the system on their own utilizing the interface. They can submit very general information about an issue and or item that they have that they would like to have their service desk follow up on. And this will in turn register an interaction within the solution that the service desk can then follow up on. So what I'm going to quickly do is just register a new interaction. I'm going to go ahead and categorize this as an incident because we're going to be utilizing primarily the interaction, incident, problem modules within this particular demo. I'm going to register this as an issue with an application, and I'm going to call this an average right now as far as urgency, but you can see within the drop-downs that they're configurable as well as you can have them classify urgency as well as category and service. I'm going to go ahead and submit that, and that's going to register a new interaction for me within the system. So you can see here I've received the interaction number. It's also pivoted me over to basically a dashboard. Each user will have their own dashboard, and it will basically show any interactions that they've registered, time, the urgency, what the current status is, as well as that number. And at any point in time, they have the ability to drill down within each of these and get updated information relative to the interaction that they've registered. They can also see any new updates or activities that have been registered as far as notations or logs within the interaction as well as instant record, as well as they can also see within the workflow where that stands within the interaction. And they can also provide their own updates. So for example, if they register an interaction that they're unable to get into their email and actually realize that they were fat fingering or for whatever reason weren't able or weren't doing something, it was basically an end user issue, not necessarily an application issue, they can actually update that, and then the service desk can take that and go ahead and shut down that particular interaction. So what I'm going to do now is get into actually Service Anywhere. For those of you familiar with Service Manager, the previous version, you'll note that a lot of the look and feel is somewhat similar, but at the same time it's been refreshed, meaning that there are the to-do lists and some of the views that are available out of the box and or primary configuration are still there. What you'll see, though, is that the navigation capabilities as well as some of the interactive capabilities that you can do with the tool have been refined and refreshed and made just that much easier. What we're currently looking at is I am associated with multiple assignment groups or functional groups within the demo environment, meaning that I am able to see multiple incidents as well as service desk interactions that have been logged within the system. What this allows me to do is see my queue. It tells me that either it's something that's assigned directly to me or something that's assigned to my assignment group, at which point I can either follow up and or engage a coworker to make sure that they're on top of a particular ticket. Along with what's been done with Service Anywhere is that they've also incorporated the enterprise collaboration solution. It's a new HP product. It's basically an internal social media collaboration tool that allows for basic chat and or follow-up in real-time coordination and collaboration with multiple personnel within the tool itself. So therefore, you can actually follow up with and or discuss issues and or get follow-ups and updates relative to current records within the tool by leveraging by collaboration. Within each of the modules that are currently in place, what you'll get is within the navigational pane is a couple of different options. Being able to search and or generate net new interactions, as well as look at what the configuration and or make configuration and tailoring updates to things that are contained within that particular module on the fly. We looked at the workflows a few minutes ago within the actual self-service portal. What I'm going to do quickly is just show you a little bit about how the workflows are driven. And these are really relevant across the board. So what you can do within one particular module as far as updates to workflows, rule sets, things of that nature, it's all applicable based on the module itself and the activities and or phases that are contained within. You can see here this is the prototypical workflow for a service desk interaction. It goes from a logging phase into categorization. That categorization can then be predetermined to assign it to folks and or categorize the interaction a little bit more uniquely. From there, you can then move it into a work in progress. If it's a self-contained interaction where it doesn't require an escalation, at any point in time it can be escalated as well, and we'll show you that. It can then move to a work in progress. It can be withdrawn at any time, and then it can be put into a review and closure phase. Each of these comes with their own sets of forms, rule sets, and actions that have to be taken before it can move through a gate, if you will, to the next phase. This drives what fields are required at what point, as well as what information is needed in order to progress that ticket through its life cycle. Each of these is a phase. There are what they call transitions, meaning that these can be set up as automated and or manually, meaning that once everything has been updated and or completed within the record, the phase will automatically transition to the next. Otherwise, you can do it manually and drive it that way as well. What I'm going to do now is just move back into the actual interaction queue. We're going to go ahead and search interactions and look for the one that I generated through the self-service portal. Anytime that you need to, if it's not currently on the ribbon here, there's a More button which has additional activities and or things that you can execute within the tool. So what I'm going to do is just a quick custom sort. And we're going to do it by create time. What this is going to allow me to do is just search for and find my record very quickly. And so this is the record that we opened up in the self-service portal itself. It's in the categorized phase. I know that because if I go down into the workflow, you can see the logging phase has been completed once I submitted that through the portal. I'm now being asked to complete and or update specific things within the record itself to continue the categorization portion. What I'm going to do now, instead of completing this as a normal interaction, which would be the service desk has fully handled the issue and is able to close it without escalating to an engineering team or a technical team at a higher tier, I'm going to go ahead and escalate this in order to show the functionality and the way in which it integrates to the incident management module. So we're going to escalate the interaction. Immediately what comes up is the tool does a search. It will do it based on a couple of different criteria, and you can drive what that action is. But it's essentially going through the entire incident module at this time, looking through the queues to identify if there is already a pre-existing incident within the record or within the system that can actually this record can be correlated to. In other words, it's helping do some base level event correlation, which allows you to ensure that you don't have multiple incidents for the same issue logged within the system at any time. You can see here that it's actually matching it on the service that's defined. It's been defined as an application service that's having an issue. If I do the drop-down, you can see that I can look not only within the incident module itself for a couple of additional matches, but I can look for known errors, as well as any pre-existing problem records that may also be open with the same type of issue and or with some level of similarity based on what's been logged within the ticket. What I'm going to do is a matching title. What this will allow me to do is just identify where within the system that I may have an incident pre-existing. So you can see here, since I've locked something that's relative to the CRM solution having an issue, you can see that I have a couple of tickets that are already pre-opened from an incident perspective, and I can go ahead and correlate this interaction to those, and from there you have a parent-child relationship that's being driven by that incident. Instead, what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up a brand new incident. What you'll see immediately is that everything that's been completed within the tool or within the interaction has been transitioned over to the incident itself. So there's no duplication of logging of information. You can continue to append and or update information that's been carried over, but there isn't the need for duplicate entry. What you will see, though, is that since we're creating and generating a net new record within the system, we're back to, within the workflow of the incident side, the logging phase. I don't have to enter anything else in. I can simply save this. It will generate a new incident record for me, and at the same time, it will move me into the categorization phase. You can also see that other things become activated within the record itself, additional information that could be captured relative to assignment groups, and we can also start to correlate this back to services and configured items so that you can match those incidents and apply the incidents to those services within the system. You can now see them in the categorization phase within the incident as well. So what I'm going to do quickly is just apply this to a configured item so you can see that. If you're having an actual outage, now you can start to track your start and end time for those outages. It allows for you to ensure that, again, within your CMDB, as you're tracking your services and your configured items, you now know your uptimes on those as well based on these incidents. If this is a net new application and for some reason it hasn't made its way into your CMDB, you do have the capability of linking in or generating new configured items within the system. But I'm going to go ahead and link this to a predefined service within the demo environment. Once I've completed, I just hit OK. It'll save that, and then it'll apply that to the incident record itself. You can see that you can also categorize this as a major incident. Again, if you've got a significant outage or things of that nature, there are ways in which you can track this from a reporting perspective, which will allow you to fine-tune and call out your higher priority incidents at a given time. At any point, you've got a proposed solution, any updates, a log file, ways in which you can provide updates, any updates that you want to make visible to the customer. Again, those go back to the portal, so when the customer goes back into the portal to check and see where the updates are on a particular issue, anything that's deemed visible, they will have access to those records. And you've got related records as well. Again, you can look at it from an incident perspective that if it was caused by another incident or if it caused other incidents, so you've got additional relationships that can be built out within a tool from a parent-child perspective. If it was caused by a change that was executed or if a change is going to have to be caused in order to resolve, you can log that there as well. And you can see within the related interactions that the initial interaction that started this incident has already been interlinked. If I want to go ahead and move this through from a workflow perspective, from a categorized to work in progress, if I try to save this without completing it fully and adding the things that are required now to move it into that phase, you'll see that I'm unable to. The workflow is driving what exactly needs to be completed in order to move this to the next level. So we'll quickly grab something here. Checking real quick to make sure there's no other required fields. Looks like I'm good. And I can save this to work in progress. Now again, if I come back down and look at the workflow, you can see it's under the investigation. At this point, or at whatever point within your organizational processes from an incident management perspective, at any point in time, I could look at this and see within the queue itself that there were multiple CRM incidents already open. I could also look at it from an historical perspective and see that there's been multiple incidents open on the exact same application, or that this was an issue that was large enough from an incident perspective that warrants a transition into problem management at some level. So again, it could be repeated or ongoing incidents, or it could be just a large-scale major issue that requires additional root cause analysis as well as a more long-term proposal and or implementation of the solution. So what I'm going to do is actually transition this incident and move this into a problem record. So from the related records perspective, I have a couple of options. What I'm going to do is come down, and I'm going to link this to a new related problems. I could look for related problems and see if there's already something in the queue again. Saw this within just doing a quick search and seeing all the CRM tickets. Could be that there's already a pre-existing problem record. But what you'll see is that even if when I start to interlink a new problem record, I still get to see that queue. So I'm going to look at this and go under Performance. And again, it's going to transition everything that I've already entered in within the interaction as well as within the incident. And I'm just going to quickly update these fields where they're required. Again, starting a net new record within the system, transitioning that, escalating that. I am back within the logging phase again, but as you can see, there's minimal information that has to be carried over and or entered that wasn't already pre-existing in the ticket. So I can hit Save. Again, this is going to allow me to see the problem records that are currently in the queue and those, again, that match up or could be related to the incident that I'm escalating to a problem now. I'm going to go ahead and again, create a net new. And so now I've got a problem record. It's in the system. It's interlinked to the incident. It's interlinked to the interaction. At any point in time, if the service desk continues to receive calls or continues to have interactions submitted via the portal by employees, and it's net new and or part of a pre-existing issue, they can start to interlink all those records at any point in time back to this problem record or to the incident. So you've got a chain, if you will, but a lot of parent-child relationships that are allowed to be built within the system. You can see that there's a known error section here. If it's determined that this is a pre-existing issue and it's something that for whatever reason you may have a root cause for, but at the same time the solution long-term requires funding, budget, so forth, and it's something that you simply want to log and make sure is available to folks to know that, yes, we're aware of that, but you know it's a work in progress and getting it completely resolved. You can select that as a known error. We're currently within the categorization. I'm going to go into the investigation portion of the workflow so you can see some additional information that can be captured. So what I'm going to try to do is move this in and make sure that I get everything I need relative to requirements met. So what I'm doing now, again, is just adding some additional uniqueness or information relative to the categorization. I'm going to add an assigned group and assigned person. So as you can see within the categorization, I completed those items. Within the workflow, you can see, again, I'm still in the categorization phase. I can abandon the problem record as well. That is built in. And again, these workflows are configurable. So, for example, if you do not have these particular steps within your current problem process, these can be remediated in order to affix to what you're currently doing or how you're doing problem management. So what I've done is saved. You can see that the categorization section collapsed, and now I've got an investigation and resolution. So now what we're currently doing is targeting timetables for identifying root cause, for identifying a specific resolution and or solution target date. You can see that there's log entry points where you can identify what the root cause was, what the current workaround may be. You can capture specific estimated costs relative to a long-term solution if there is indeed investment and or dollars that need to be allocated in order to put that permanent correction in place, as well as estimated man days. In other words, you can start from a resource management perspective, get an understanding of what the level of effort may be in order to get that correction in place. If we look down into the workflow, again, we're currently in the investigation. As we continue to move through, any additional fields and or required elements would be captured, and we would be queued in order to continue to move this through this life cycle of the record. We have, the ability to add affected items or configured items. You have tasks here that can be generated. These tasks can be dealt out based on your particular process. If there are various teams that need to be engaged in order for root cause to be identified and or for the solution to be put in place, it's as simple as linking new tasks, defining what that task would be, identifying who's responsible for doing it, and then adding any specific notes. So, for example, if I want a team member to go out and investigate, I can add an investigation task. I can pilot, give some information, assign it to an assigned group as well as an individual. And again, the task has its own workflow. It's very simple. Once I put it in, it will become active, and then from there, it gets tracked and gets managed under the problem record itself.
Okay, so David, could you switch over to the really quick to the administration module, and maybe just spend a few more minutes talking about some of the configuration processes and abilities?
Sure. So that's actually under the system configuration. What the Service Anywhere tool has done is they've got a data load tool that comes with, so you're not starting from scratch. With the current Service Manager as well as some of the other third-party products that are out there, there is an export utility that can be leveraged to pull your core data out of that solution, and there is a data load tool that comes with Service Anywhere. So it allows for the ability to upload key data points, not necessarily historical ticketing, but all the background functional data that you would need to get started with Service Anywhere. So, for example, your assignment groups, key escalations, personnel, how they're related, what their roles may be. All that information can be pulled in and then imported within Service Anywhere very quickly and very easily. There's the way in which the Service Anywhere works is it's moving from a very flat database structure into a much more tiered and much more interactive structure, and everything is done on the front end. There is no interaction directly with the database. All you're simply doing is making changes to forms as well as workflow through the web portal that we're looking at now. Workflows and tables as well as menus can all be updated here. At any point in time, you can look and see exactly what workflows are available as well as copy a workflow, so you're not actually starting from scratch either. It gives you the ability to fast-track some of the best practice processes that are currently in place from an HP perspective and actually generate a workflow as well as tailor it to your needs without having, again, to start from the ground up. So, for example, if we wanted to copy the incident management workflow, we could simply do that, and then from there, make whatever alterations we would want. But it allows you to clone that and then make it your own, if you will. From a menus, localization, implementation lifecycle tool, again, these are going to get into much more detail during our third webinar, but all of this information and all of these activities can be done directly from the portal itself.
Excellent. Thanks, David. So ResultsPositive had an opportunity during the beta program to heavily participate with HP during the development of this first release. So our team was involved in testing and validation as well as recommendations around the functionality and look and feel for the initial release of the Service Anywhere tool. We had a team of 4 folks. It was actually pretty exciting for us because we were able to see from the ground up how the tool was structured and built. For those of you that are Legacy Service Manager folks, you know that the workflow engine that David demonstrated inside of the Service Anywhere tool was actually initially introduced in the Change Management module in Service Manager in version 9. And so they have taken that workflow engine and made it the central hub from a workflow process perspective for the new Service Anywhere tool. We also were able to conduct several, provide feedback to several interviews with things like Channel Pro and CRN. That is a direct result of our time on the beta program to provide feedback and help to introduce the tool to the industry. We are also investing significant R&D efforts around Service Anywhere or SAW. We'll be rolling out both some reporting capabilities using the executive scorecard and the KPIs that are being structured there, as well as working with HP to introduce some mobile applications that you will see begin to roll out in the next couple of releases for Service Anywhere. I want to focus a little bit on the executive scorecard just for a minute. The KPIs are interesting because we can pull information not only from the Service Anywhere tool, but we can couple that with configuration management tools that you may already have in place, as well as asset management tools. So all these can be pulled together. So from a standpoint of being able to report on the health of a particular service or configuration item, we can actually work with you to roll that into information from multiple sources to include Service Anywhere. So anybody who is currently looking at that or has any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, and we can definitely set up a time to talk to you in more detail about some of those offerings. David, go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. So we've kicked off our soft offerings around 2 to start. The first one is a 2-week proof of concept. HP will provide you an environment where you can actually play, and we can work with you in a proof of concept over an 80-hour period, 2 weeks, to stand up and pull in some of your organizational data, set up some business services, and then configure a few items around those business services so that you can actually see the tool function with your services and with your organizational data, and to assist in you making a decision to move forward. So this proof of concept is prepackaged, it's 80 hours, and it's all-inclusive. And actually, we have on the phone with us today Mark Buell, who actually manages our sales team. So if there's an interest around this proof of concept, please let us know, and we'll hook you and Mark up together. And the other one is a Rapid Start, which is a 4-week program. That's actually intended to get you started. So once a commitment has been made on your part to move forward with Service Anywhere, we can set up a system for you with your organizational data, set up to 10 business services for you, bring in your configuration item, bring in and set up your actual individual assignment groups and operators, and then do some minor tailoring around the forms and the workflow. So this is intended to pretty much leverage the out-of-box flows for incident service and problem, but it would also allow for some minor tweaks around the forms and the workflows, and we can discuss that in more detail for anybody who's interested in that Rapid Start approach. Both of these are ready now, and we can work with HP to package together both your purchase of the SaaS offering as well as services that we've discussed here around the proof of concept and the Rapid Start.